Hello and welcome, wonderful patrons. First of all, as you can see, I have a little bit of a different background than is typical for me. So I'm actually traveling right now. I'm in Durango, Colorado for I'm attending a yoga workshop. So I feel really happy, fortunate to be here. I actually drove out from Southern California, stopped off in Arizona, and then came up to Colorado, and it sure has been a beautiful drive. And Colorado is a beautiful place, and I'm definitely getting a little bit of early, more cozy fall weather, which is refreshing. So, anyway, that said, I did want to be sure to talk with you a little bit about this transition over into autumn. So, we're just coming up right now on the fall equinox, which has a lot of significance for different people and for different reasons and across various traditions. I'll be talking about this more from an Ayurvedic standpoint and kind of more in practical terms of some tips for taking care of yourself during fall and kind of in this transition over from summer to fall. But it is a special time. I mean, I think that for a lot of us, just kind of on one level, there's just that feeling of like seeing the light turn a little more golden and the mornings and the evenings getting cooler, depending on where you live. Maybe you're seeing some changes in the colors on the leaves of the trees. There's that feeling of maybe just like a little bit more coziness. And maybe in some ways, like a feeling of coming home or uh, being able to allow yourself to turn inward more. I mean, nature and now that we're coming into this balance of the dark and light times of year and then moving into that more dark time of year, and of course the holiday season and just colder weather, which tends to put us indoors more. Although in the Southern California desert, everything's upside down because we stay indoors and shut ourselves away in the heat of the summer and then come out in the winter. But anyway, I think symbolically, it definitely is a time of more kind of, turning over to that darker and more inward time, and not in a bad way, but just as that kind of the natural life cycle, right? And also that actually really fits in with the flow of the doshas, vata, pitta, and kapha, and how that operates throughout the year. So the spring is the kapha time of year. And I have recordings if you're like, what is vata, pitta, kapha? What is she talking about? I do have recordings. I have an intro to Ayurveda recording, and then also recordings that explain more of the three doshas. But anyway, spring is this kapha time of year. So it's kind of coming out of that cool, moist season. It's kind of more of that time of building. Building, rebirth. Kapha relates to the building phase of life. And then pitta, when the sun is hottest, when we hit those, longest day, the time of year when we have more light than more dark, right? Then we're moving into that pitta time. And then, so there's a certain heat and kind of intensity that comes with that, with those kind of brighter, hotter days, right? And then we move into fall, which is really the vata time of year. And fall and winter are late fall and early winter are ruled by vata dosha. And this is more equating to sort of the end of the life cycle. So this is when the leaves may fall off the trees. If you're in a colder climate, maybe some of the animals going to hibernate. It is more of like going from birth to then that kind of height of the sun, midlife, metabolic. It's kind of relating to like metabolism and more like digesting and producing almost, right? Then to this more like shedding away, a drying up, a turning inward. And that's really what we have when we get to the autumnal season. Okay, so that said, knowing that we are moving now into Vata season, what does that mean? Well, first of all, what are the qualities of Vata dosha? So Vata dosha is made of air and ether. The qualities are it's light, subtle, dry, rough, cool. And so this means, what does this mean? It means that you may see some or more of these qualities show up as we move into fall. So the air gets a little cooler. maybe it feels a little bit drier. That could translate obviously to your body feeling cooler, maybe your skin feeling a little bit drier. Just there's a little bit more of and also I think just with that change of seasons, any type of change sort of it heightens vata dosha. Okay. And it's not good or bad. It's just change relates to vata dosha. So it's a time of transition. It's a time of change. And that said, what are the things that we need to do to balance out those more cool, rough, dry, light, mobile qualities? So the things that really benefit vata dosha are warmth, oil, and regular routine. So warmth, moisture, oil, and regular routines, because vata is cold by nature. So the obvious is get cozy, bundle up, get warm externally and internally, right? From the outside in, from the inside out. If mobility is and change and sometimes maybe unpredictability or kind of like an erratic nature, if that is part of vata, what do? We bring in regular stabilizing routines, right? And then also if dryness is a part of vata, what do? We bring in moisture externally and internally. Okay. So, but I just want to address also that this is a little bit more nuanced than that, right? Because obviously you have to look at what's your constitution, what were you born with, what is going on with you now, where do you live, fall in, I will tell you, Palm Desert, California is different than fall in Durango, Colorado, right? Going to be different than in upstate New York, or certainly also if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then we've got, you kind of have to flip the whole thing around, right? So, but I think like what's helpful, the thing about Ayurveda that I think is so practical is that you always come back to what are the qualities of the person, what are the qualities of the climate, of the situation, and then how do you bring balance, right? So obviously if you live in a place right now that's really hot and humid, then what you're going to be doing to find balance is going to be different than somebody who's living in a dry, cool climate, right? But we can talk about the doshas as a way of understanding and giving structure, giving meaning to these sort of to these energetics, to these themes, right? So that said, all that said, taking the nuance into account, your own constitution, your exact climate, in general, that kind of cool, dry end of the year time, when the weather gets colder, when the days get darker, when it gets dark earlier, that's more going into vata time of year, and then ultimately kapha time. Okay, so we're going to eat differently. We're going to do different things than when it's 80 or 90 or 110 degrees outside, right? So, I love summer for smoothie season. You saw me post a couple smoothie recipes. I will probably not be posting smoothie recipes in December. Okay, not even in Palm Desert. So, what do we need to do during this time of year? Early fall is actually a little bit different than late fall. So early fall, we're still moving out of pitta time. Now, pitta is hot, sharp, it's oily, it's intense, it's moist. So it benefits from bitter, astringent, and also sweet, kind of cooling sweet foods, right? So as we're moving from this heat of summer into the cool fall, before we work on really like those really more like heavy, nourishing, like the stews or roasts, or if you eat meat, meats or heavier nuts or heavier sweets, even things like that that we may really crave and consume in the deep of winter. Before we move into that, first we want to have foods that are kind of actually a little bit purifying, a little bit lightening, and then a little bit nourishing too. So it's kind of like the equinox, right? Balancing light and dark. This is the time of year where it's like that switching over. It's a little bit of a balancing act of, you don't want to go too heavy just yet, but we are moving into fall and vata dosha benefits from some heaviness. So we do want to bring in some foods that are a little bit more earthy, right? So a lot of the crops that are in season during this time would be appropriate. We might start seeing things like one of my favorites, delicata squash, right? So some of these squashes, pumpkins, foods that have a little bit more moisture, a little more heft than some of the summer crops. It's not watermelon, right? It's not a peach, it's got a little more heft than that, but it's not like super heavy. Also, we could go a little bit strong too on the bitter and astringent foods at this time, and that would be beneficial. So Ayurveda teaches that we actually want to purge out some of that excess heat and that pitta dosha of the summer in preparation for building up for the deeper fall and winter. So before, you don't want to dye a dirty cloth, right? So it's like before you start building, first let's get any accumulated junk out. And of course, that's, an ongoing thing. It's not like like some kind of purification obsession, right? But just that, if there's like a little cranky pitta heat in you, this may be the time to kind of purge a little bit of that out with some like more bitter astringent foods. So apples, actually, which are in season now, could be a good food for that. Cranberries, so our holiday favorite cranberry sauce. Also foods like broccoli, cauliflower, aloe, these, and some of the dark leafy greens. These are all helpful for kind of calming, processing out that excess pitta dosha that does accumulate during summer. And then we also do want to start bringing in some of the slightly heavier foods. So things like figs, dates, squash, whole oats, brown rice, basmati rice. We could also do things like goat's milk. Actually would be nice at this time of year because it's a little bit more nourishing, but it still has a little bit of that. It's not quite as heavy as cow's milk, so it still has a little bit of a lightness to it. So things like goat's milk, things like eggs, tahini, maybe more raw nut butters versus the roasted, and like the cashews, almonds, almond butter, those are a little bit heavier. So maybe more like a sunflower butter or a tahini or like a raw nut butter would be good at this time of year, or like, yeah, some goats or sheep's milk or cheese. If you do meat, maybe more like fish or poultry, just not those super heavy, like meaty stews of winter. And then also we do want to be aware of perhaps watching the moisture and the oil intake at this time of year as well. So certainly in summer, we do want to have a lot of hydrating fruits and beverages, right, to replace the moisture lost in that hotter weather. So, things like green juices and watermelon and coconut and all the juicy stone fruits, those are great in summer. As we move into fall, we do want to keep up with our moisture because moisture and oil pacify vata, right? But it's a little bit different. So now we can start bringing in some nice oils, also the moisture from foods like squash and pumpkin and squash soups and pumpkin soups and things like that can be good. And then, we may want to just slightly up our oil intake at this time as well. So ghee is a good one. You could do maybe a little bit of sesame oil, olive oil, avocado oil. Coconut you could do. It's a little bit more cooling though. So, just be aware of that. And then also putting oil on your skin. So Ayurveda has a practice called abhyanga, which is oil massage, and that can be performed, you could receive an abhyanga from a practitioner, right? Or just the act of massaging oil, such as a nice sesame oil or a nice almond oil or whatever kind of rich sort of skin absorbent oil you like to use, massaging that into your skin as well is a really nice way to not only nourish the health of your skin, to bring some moisture and luster to your skin, but it also really calms down that kind of windy, mobile, dry nature of vata dosha. And that also can become a really nice, healthful sort of grounding daily or weekly routine to engage in. So I know I've kind of maybe I've been a little bit vata scattered in this conversation. So hopefully this makes sense. I am going to link out to some articles, but I do just want to say, like, if you are somebody who does have a lot of vata in your constitution, I think mine is coming through right now, and we're moving into fall, you want to be especially aware of take some time to nourish yourself, to have quiet, to build in some routines that feel like they kind of bring you back home, like they bring you back to center. And Ayurveda has a whole sort of regimen and menu of practices for that. And I can again link out to some resources on that and talk about that in future Ayurveda chats. But also just note for yourself, what is it that your nature, that your body and your mind are craving during this time of year? Because oftentimes when we tune in, when we really do tune deeply in, our bodies are guiding the way. And something I love about Ayurveda is that it really does guide us back to listening to that wisdom of the body. All right. Well, I will link out to some resources. Certainly for Vata dosha, think warmth, oil, regular routine. That shall be your mantra for fall. Please write if you have any questions. Honestly, I'm always open to questions. I'm not going to give detailed health advice, personal health advice, but if you have some general questions, feel free to message me or leave them in the comments. And happy fall, happy equinox, happy finding the balance between light and dark. And of course, balance is really guided by movement. Balance is an ebb and flow, but we can enjoy this point in time. All right, thanks so much, patrons, and see you next time.